All right. All right. Greetings, family. It's me, Kristen Denise. I am at the Culture Center, as you can see behind me. And tonight, we're going to have a great, great discussion. You can see I have my Elmer Geronimo Pratt Gun Club shirt on, and that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. We're going to be talking about the importance of Black people arming themselves. What is 2A? What is gun ownership? What is gun safety? All that. So I'm excited to have for now two special guests on. We had the National Commander, Brother Nick Bezel, and we had the Miss Commander of the South Region, Brother Patrick Lumumba. And I'm gonna bring them up stage because we basically want to dive right into the discussion because it's this important discussion for Black folks because we really need to understand the importance of our Second Amendment rights. And I'm gonna start off by greeting. I see Sister Queen Kathy, Queen Mother Kathy slides on. So welcome and thank you for tuning in, everyone who's tuning in. And I'm just gonna go ahead and bring these great brothers on right now because I'm super excited about what we're gonna be talking about. Greetings, commanders.
Hey, peace, Sister Crystal. How you doing?
Pow.
I'm great. I'm great. How are y'all
Right.
doing?
We great.
Everything's
I'm
good.
great.
Yeah, everything's good. Well, if he's great, I'm great also. So that's what we
Yeah.
That's what
If he great, I'm good. I'm greater.
at.
Yeah.
well, both of y'all are great. Both of y'all are great. I see MCE Soul Music on. There's Brother Obafemi or Brother Cedric. Not sure which brother it is, but it may be both of them from Pine Bluff. Glad to have them on as well. So tonight we're going to be talking about Elmer Geronimo Pratt, the Gun Club, the Second Amendment, all this good stuff. Because as Black people, we need to know what is going on, why we need to protect ourselves, what is 2A, and all these other things that are associated with what we do at Elmer Geronimo Pratt. So the first thing I want you all to do is just introduce yourself and give us a little bit of history about why you do what you do with Elmer Geronimo Pratt.
Commander Patrick, go ahead. I'll let you start it off.
Okay. Well, I wasn't expecting to do that, but yes, sir. Whatever it takes. Well, I'm Brother Patrick Lumumba. As you all know, Southern Region Commander of the Elmer Geronimo Pratt Gun Club. But prior to becoming the Southern Region Commander, I was the chief organizer facilitator, as I still am, of the Black Liberation Movement, Mississippi-based Black Liberation Movement. And in doing so, all the civic development that we were doing with the Black Liberation Movement, um, the activity for the years that we conducted the activity, uh, ran us into a collision course with people doing work on another liberating aspect, like our national commander, brother Nick Bezel, ran us into a collision course with his agenda and the agenda of the Elmer Geronimo Pratt. So it was a natural merger between Elmer Geronimo Pratt and the Black Liberation Movement. And it was Brother Nick Bezel that seen fit, due to the activity of the Black Liberation Movement, that saw fit if we were going to expand the parameters of the Black Liberation Movement to military science, military aspect, that he saw fit to appoint me, first of all, Mississippi commander of the Elmer Geronimo Pratt Gun Club, which I was so honored to do. And on pulling a few maneuvers after that, we had a few maneuvers after Natchez in the where we went to pay homage to our ancestors in Elmer Geronimo Pratt, and other grassroots organizations, 2A organizations came to Natchez, Mississippi. Brother Nick Bezel sponsored an event of our Mississippi Town Talk tour, and we began just to bond right there. So after that particular event, which was very successful in Natchez, we pulled other maneuvers together. We began to campaign together, pull maneuvers together, and we went out to Colorado to Freedom Ranch. And upon going to Freedom Ranch, it was a real bonding experience for us. 15, 16-hour drive, met brothers out there that were determined and dedicated. And after that weekend was done, uh, our national commander saw fit to appoint me as the regional commander of the South, which is a great honor. and I'm still overwhelmed by that. I'm still overwhelmed by that duty, and I had great respect for this position, and I hope to serve in this position to the greatest of my capacity. So that's my thing right there. I'm looking forward to having this conversation. Been looking forward to having this conversation all week long. So I'm gonna cut it right there and give it to the National Command.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you, Commander. So, for you all who don't know me, I'm Nick Bezel, the founder of the Elmer Geronimo Pratt Pistol and Rifle Gun Club. We officially were established January 2020, unofficially the end of 2019. And just, I'll give people who haven't heard the story, I'll give you a quick version of it. In 2019, some of my friends, they knew I shot a lot. I did a lot of stuff with firearms. I had, a decent amount of guns, and these brothers started asking me questions. Um, and based on the questions they were asking, they wanted to start training. They wanted to become proficient with firearms as they were having them in their home. So, it was just a natural process. Started working with these brothers and some sisters, um, and it just came about. They said, "Hey, why don't you start a gun club?" And I had never really thought about it, but people kept asking about it, so I decided to um, start formulating the idea of creating this gun club. Uh, and eventually it came about in January 2020 is when it officially it launched, and we've been rolling ever since. So the first 6 months it was just training, 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 and that's really all we really focused on: firearm safety, firearm proficiency, learning, different things about firearms, how they, how shotguns versus rifles versus pistols, just teaching, as much as I could, all of my knowledge about firearms to people. And then George Floyd happened
Mhm.
about 6 months later. And myself and some of the members of this new gun club, 6 months old, we had went down to the first weekend of the protest, and we saw people exercising their First Amendment rights, peacefully protesting, being shot with rubber bullets, being gassed, being brutalized by the slave patrol. And we said to ourselves, then and there, we will make sure that nobody, as long as we're around, as long as we had a capacity, nobody will be treated like that again. So, that, evolved into our mission as far as training Black men, women, and children on the safe use of firearms, how to protect themselves. And it also evolved into protecting our community and our people for just causes. And that's kind of where we evolved into. And so to this day, and we just had a maneuver on Saturday where slave patrollers were out in Houston. But I can say to this day, there has never been an encounter while the Elmer Geronimo Pratt Gun Club has been there that anyone has ever been taken to jail, that anybody has ever been brutalized or attacked by the slave patrol. And so, I stand by that, regardless of what people want to think or say or whatever the case may be. It's never happened.
Mhm.
It's never
Mhm.
happened. Not on our watch. And salute to everybody who's ever stood with us. The list of organizations and individuals is long, but you know, our allies, our partners who always stood with us in the fire. We've never lost anybody to the slave patrols while we've been out on mission. And that's something that, we all pride ourselves on. And then just going from that, it just, continued to evolve, from protecting people to understanding, being able, and this is where myself and brother Patrick really connect at, is because we understand civic development. We understand the change, not the physical change of our ancestors, but the change today that prevents our people from doing certain things. And what I mean by that is the laws that are still put in place, Jim Crow era laws, slave era laws that are still in place that prevents our people from, being able to live in peace. And so we started working, like, for instance, we got no-knock warrants banned in certain cities here in the state of Texas. That was something that we fought for. And, our method might have been unconventional, but you can point and look directly and say, this organization tangibly was able to get laws changed. This isn't just chanting and marching and, a whole lot of fluff. You can point at something tangible and say they actually were able to get laws changed on a local level. And we actually went to the state level and fought to get it changed as well. We lost that fight a couple of years ago, but we plan on taking it back to the state house. But what I'm talking about is tangibles that our people can see, that they can point to say, hey, that's what they're actually doing. And then, of course, other things, we fight for our brothers and sisters who are unjustly incarcerated. We have food programs, humanitarian efforts. So it's a whole host of things. It's more to us than just carrying guns. We believe in helping and developing our people.
Great, great, great. Yes. And I want to talk about that some in detail later. But I first want to talk about, because you said something, you said safety and proficiency. And then if you go to the website, I'm going to post the website in the comments in a minute. But the mission is right there on the website, y'all. It says to train Black men and women nationwide in the areas of responsible gun ownership, gun safety, and protecting our Black communities. And so most of us know that there's this disconnect in the Black community and guns. A lot of our people are afraid of them because we've been propagandized to fear them, to not want them around, to want them banned, to this, that, and the other. So I want y'all to speak on the importance of us understanding and knowing that we must arm ourselves, that we must be ready and trained properly, like you said, because a lot of us don't know the difference between a pistol and a gun and what this is and what that is. And so we take whatever we see trending on television and say, okay, you need to ban guns, not even knowing what what a gun is sometimes. So just can you speak to that, please?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is people. You always hear the term "crawl before you walk, walk before you run," and a lot of people want to skip steps and they just want to jump into it. They'll see, like you just said, Sister Crystal. They'll see what's trending, or they'll see the cool thing on rap videos, or people post stuff. But you go out and purchase something without actually training with it, or without actually knowing what it does, or how it will actually function. A lot of people get these Dracos, and I mean, to each his own. If they want it, I would never buy one. But it doesn't, to me, it doesn't really serve a purpose unless you're just gonna, just blindly fire a bunch of rounds out, especially when you start talking about distance and, getting into the whole science of ballistics as the projectile leaves the firearm. So that's probably a class for another day, Sister Crystal, so I won't dive deep into that. But just understanding that our people need to start with the basics. They need to get a handgun and a rifle and a shotgun, and have someone who's proficient in these weapon systems, and teach them how to load the weapon properly, how to unload the weapon properly. The fundamentals of firearm safety. Like, learn these things, because you will prevent a lot of accidents. And I think as people, we have to have our children around firearms as well. And I say that because a lot of people might cringe when I say that, but if children are comfortable around firearms, it doesn't become taboo anymore. We have members in our organization that their children know what to do if they find a firearm, because that's what we do. We want to train our people in firearm safety and firearms proficiency. And so, I encourage people to not shy away from firearms, but actually embrace it and use it to defend yourself. I always said, you can always find me somewhere saying I don't advocate violence, but I do advocate self-defense. And everybody has a right to self-preservation. And so, just this day and time, and we can talk about, over the course of the history, just here in America, whether it's the colonies or the United States, how firearms played a prevalent role in the advancement of Black people. It wasn't the end all be all, but it allowed Black people, especially during the 50s and the 60s, to be able to exercise their message. And that's where this evolution, like I said, during the George Floyd protest, this is kind of where that evolution came from, because, again, people were trying to be silenced in the summer of 2020. And so we used our Second Amendment right to make sure that people's First Amendment right wasn't impeded on.
And I think that's important because a lot of people don't even realize. And I forgot to bring my books with me. We Will Shoot Back by Bob Akiyele Moja, and This Nonviolent Stuff Will Get You Killed by Dr. Charles Cobb. And a lot of people don't understand that uh, you cannot, if you really truly are fighting for justice, you cannot be unarmed. You gotta have arms. You gotta be able to defend yourself because these people are not playing. All you gotta do is read the history and see the patterns of what's going on in this country. And so, and it's something because I grew up around firearms. Most of the people in the South did, as Bob Akiyele pointed that out in his book. But I never really thought about arming myself until I began to get older and understand the importance of being able to defend myself. So yeah, I know, Brother Patrick, you want to say something about that as well. The importance of arming ourselves and why it's such a like you said, taboo topic subject. Don't want to deal with it, put our head in the sand subject in the Black community.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. So, my thing is, coming from the civic aspect, and with so much teaching that we've done, with the Black Liberation Movement and what we trying to establish with the Ashe Academy, which is Black First Learning institution. We try and teach the historical value. And what happens uh, now, we not getting the history behind our dynamics. And what I mean by that, if we truly understood our history, as it pertains to our relationship with white people and the white supremacist social order, then it becomes absolutely logical and necessary that Black people organize and bear arms. I mean, our history dictates, it precipitates nothing but that when you come when you deduce all the logic just based on our history up until this particular point. So in all the instances, when you read books like We Will Shoot Back, that was composed so brilliantly by Akinyele Umoja, when you read that book, you begin to understand that Black people who had any type of resistance, and I'm referring to resistance now as a measure of power, that actually put white people in the social order back on their heels. These Black folk had arms, but we are under the impression today, as a Black mass, that the movement should be a non-violent movement because the people that propagated for Black people, and we call names like Dr. Martin Luther King. These people were propagating from a non-violent perspective, but it was the whole movement was undergirded by Black people who bared arms. And if you would look more detailed and read these books, you would understand that most of the things that got done and got pushed for Black people were because it was some Black people who were not playing. It was some Black people who were not praying. I wouldn't say they weren't praying, but they showing them hell when playing. And they had guns and they understood that their life depended on that. So as we go on in the conversation, we can elaborate more on it. But I think just sitting here right now, just watching us synchronize wearing Elmer Geronimo Pratt gun club material and propagandizing the Second Amendment right for Black people to bear arms. I think we doing Black people a service and just having this show and to talk about and articulate to people why we should organize and bear arms. We got guns in the Black community. We not organized. So that's what we want to do. We want to organize under the Second Amendment, under proper leadership and guidance, and be able to maintain what I call organized force by the use of the Second Amendment.
Agree. Yes, and so I have started reading this book, Last Man Standing, and it's really very, yes, it's very interesting. And anyone who's watching, you need to get this book. You need to get We Will Shoot Back. You need to get This Nonviolent Stuff Will Get You Killed. So as I'm reading Geronimo Pratt's story, I'm still in the first parts of the book when he's out in California and has joined the Black Panther Party and the harassment. Y'all, this stuff is real. When we talk about slave patrol and all the harassment and everything that's going, it's not a conspiracy theory. It's based on historical patterns that these people have displayed. So Nick, Commander Nick, I want you to talk about Geronimo Pratt and why we are named in his honor.
Yeah, I knew we would get to that. That's always the question. I think just growing up, as a young man, right, as a teenager, and then becoming a young man, um, one of my favorite rappers, Tupac Shakur, Geronimo Pratt was his godfather. I would hear Tupac mention him, Geronimo Pratt, Geronimo Pratt, Geronimo Pratt. So, I knew Tupac's affiliation clearly with the Black Panthers. So then as I got older, I started doing my research on them. And the more that, I began to understand and see the type of person that he was, I started seeing a lot of similarities, and just understanding his fight, like where he came from, and then also him understanding his purpose in life. Right? He knew what he set out to do, and that's what he did. And for you all who don't really know the history of the Pratt family, and if you read this book, you'll definitely, and I know Sister Crystal, you kind of are in the early phases of it. But these are highly intelligent people. The Pratts are very intelligent, and you probably read some of that. These are highly intelligent people. And General Geronimo was the youngest out of his siblings. I believe it was 6 of them total. But he was the youngest of his siblings. All the rest of them, they went off to school, whether it was like USC, UCLA, a lot of them. And the Pratts are well known in the Southern California area. But, he actually, before he went to the Army, I know a lot of people hear me talk about him. He was a war veteran in Vietnam, but he actually sought out the advice of the elders. So you saw that, Sister Crystal, right? So he
Yeah,
actually sought out
yeah.
So he actually sought out the advice of the elders, and instead of going off to college like all of his siblings before him, they told General Geronimo, go to the Army. And they told him that the skills that he will acquire in the Army will be required at a later point. And so that's exactly what he did. So he went, he fought in Vietnam, highly decorated, came back home. When he came back home, the elders instructed him to go to Southern California to meet Bunchy Carter. And so he went out there with his family because his family, like I said, his siblings were living there. And so he went out there, met Bunchy Carter, and I think a lot of people know the story from there. But just for me personally, understanding his life, his purpose, his calling, I couldn't think of anybody better for me personally to honor than this man. He was a high school athlete against the odds. He went to Vietnam and fought against the odds. He took his talents, his skill set, and he traveled again all over the country, training Panther units all across the country, all these chapters. He was sent directly from Bunchy and from Oakland, the leadership. They told him to travel all over the country and train other Panthers in the art of self-defense. And this man, General Geronimo, was brilliant. A brilliant strategist, a brilliant tactician, and he saved lives. It was because of him, Panthers' lives were saved. And when you read his story and hear his story, and just hear about everything that he went through, in particular his 27 years being incarcerated and the abuse that he had to endure, I think a lot of people will see the tenacity in this man, his ability to want to help his people train and defend themselves, which is what our mission statement is. And so I think understanding that, then you would understand, based on what we are setting out to do, a lot of people understand why we named the gun club after Geronimo Pratt.
Right. And it's because I learned of them a few years ago. And that is why, we do what we do here at our Shea Academy, is because we learn about these people at different ages and stages in our life, and we become inspired and encouraged by their work. So we need our children, we need to learn at an earlier age so that we can start really doing the work at an earlier age. And now we just gonna be on that hamster wheel, turning and turning and turning. And so when I was reading about him and the elders and how they had that ecosystem in Morgan City and how they really respected the elders and the elders told them what they needed to do. I mean, it was just so enlightening and refreshing for me to read that, because I'm always saying that we need to get back to the village, the community, the ecosystem. The black people really need to do that. We really do. And it's people like reading about Geronimo Pratt that helps me understand that that really is what we need to do. Um, brother Commander Patrick, I want you to talk a little bit about you alluded to it some, the civic development and protecting what we build and all that. Can you go into further detail about it? You know, like what we're doing here in Mississippi, why it's important to have, you know, be armed and ready. I did pull a quote. I think Brother Akil shared it some time ago. He said, no matter how you feel about guns, you should educate yourself with the historical truth of disarmed populations. And so I want us to talk about really the importance of 2A, what it is, why we really have to get adamant about arming ourselves.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna say this because I've been thinking about how to say this as effectively as possible, so that people can really internalize what it is that we doing here. You know, what is 2A? You know, why did even white people establish an amendment that said that the people had the right to bear arms? So when you look at white people talking about bearing arms, and you look at the social structure of America, and then you have to apply black people to that. You know, so you say black people were never intended to bear arms. You know what I'm saying? We were never intended to organize and bear arms. So, you know, the importance of black people building, we had an example in Tulsa, Oklahoma, what we call Black Wall Street. You know, that's the best example, most polarized example for black people to look at, you know, as far as civic development. You know, so we go and we develop these spaces. You know, you had to be a group of intelligent black people to actually even do that. But then when it's vulnerable and can be destroyed by white terrorism, you know, we lend ourselves, you know, to that type thing happening. So we got to learn from our mishaps. So, you know, developing civically is very important, you know, to a people. You know, so black people have to develop. And I want to kind of say something that Baba Shabaka Afrika, because I actually have two Shabaka as Babas and teachers, you know, as well. And one was Baba Shabaka Jijaga, who was right there with Geronimo Pratt. And I tried to invite him to this call because he was there with Geronimo Pratt, and he resides right there in Marshall County, Mississippi right now. But he was out in Southern California with Geronimo Pratt. I have not read Last Man Standing yet, like, you know, y'all have, but I will be doing that soon. So I have to resort to the first-hand accounts, well, second-hand accounts that I get from Shabaka. But Shabaka Afrika said this, and I like for people to hear what Shabaka Afrika had to say about us developing ourselves. He said, a people who cannot protect the parameters of their community cannot develop confidence to have or maintain their own humanity.
Hmm.
Basically, what he's saying is that if we cannot protect the parameters of our communities that we build, we can never really develop the confidence to have or maintain any form of humanity. Now think about that. Think about America and what America does itself. What it do is always talking about the border, you know, protecting the border. It always talking about homeland security. See, think about that. You know, so we get caught up in the psychology of all that, you know, and we begin to be fearful of people who basically protecting their parameters. So if we never develop communities and develop the ability to protect our parameters, we will never develop the confidence to actually develop, you know, our proper humanity. So what I'm saying is that the civic development aspect got to be backed up by our confidence in knowing that we can protect ourselves. You know, we got to be able to protect ourselves.
Yeah. And I want to piggyback off what Commander Patrick just said. I mean, all we have to do is look through history. Just here, you know, in this country, when diplomacy fails, Anytime diplomacy breaks down, on the U.S. side, the first, they go straight to the bombs and the bullets, straight to the
Mm-hmm.
bombs and the bullets. For people who, I know there's some young people that watch it, watch here as well. But go back and watch before the invasion of Iraq, when George Bush Jr. Was basically harassing Saddam Hussein. Whatever you feel about him, however you feel about him. But he kept saying, pushing people, we're going to go in there. We're looking for weapons of mass destruction. And Saddam Hussein got on global television and said, we don't have no weapons of mass destruction here. And he said, if the president of the United States wants to have a discussion, we can have a discussion. He said, if he wants to have it openly so the whole world can hear it, we can have it openly. He said, but there's no weapons of mass destruction here. But, again, for the United States, for George Bush, or more, for him, it was more about his father more than anything else. So for you all don't know the history about the first Gulf War and the second Gulf War, go back and do your research on that as well. But it'll show you about how we behave, as a nation, how the the white structure behaves when things don't go their way, and that it was no more talking, there was no being peaceful. It was called shock and awe, because what did they say? The world is going to see something they never seen before. And they could, initially just went on a bombing campaign in Iraq. But, like Commander Patrick was saying, that's, psychologically, that was their excuse, because they wanted to defend themselves, right? The homeland. And so they figured using weapons, if Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, they'd use it against the homeland. So they immediately turned to their weapons to use it to be able to secure the homeland. So when we're talking about self-defense, it doesn't matter who's saying it or who's doing it. Everybody's entitled to self-defense, whether it's right or wrong, the situation. But clearly, when it comes to self-preservation of your people, that's really the only tool that anybody's going to ever understand. And like Commander Patrick said, when you look at Black Wall Street, it was only 5 people that took a stand, five black men that took a stand to defend Black Wall Street. Imagine if it was 500 of them to protect Black Wall Street versus 5, right? Them white men probably wouldn't even be able to get to them planes to bomb Black Wall Street. They probably would have killed them all before they even got there. So we as a people, we have to stop being reactive, and we have to start being proactive to make sure that we're in a position to make sure nobody comes and abuses us.
Yeah, because trust, when they know that you will defend yourself, when they know that you a man up and woman up, they'll think about it. I mean, all you gotta do is pick up Bobby Akinyele's book and read about Mama Jamie Brewer, E.W. Steptoe, all these people who armed themselves, and they knew that these people were armed, and if they didn't, they found out and they bagged up, and they bagged all the way up. So I do want, because you what you said, it reminded me of the event, the standoff in Taylorsville, and I want y'all to talk about that, because people need to know that, I don't know, it was what, 11, 12, that, hey, manned up, and you all showed them, this is the business, and they bagged up, and then they tried to save face after. But I want y'all to talk about some of the examples, real-time examples of us, because I'm part of it too. I'm part of Elmer Geronimo Pratt of us standing up and defending ourselves and making it work and making it known, so people can know.
You want me to do that, Joe?
Yes, sir. Go ahead. You can. I mean, I'll fill in as well, but I definitely.
I'm just gonna be brief.
Sister Valerie, salute to you, and go ahead, Commander Patrick.
Look here, man. Taylorsville, for those who did not witness it, I got a chance to witness it. And I'm going to tell everybody right now, I'm an ancestor worshiper. Okay? I'm an ancestor worshiper. So in that, it empowers me, and I'm a spirit-led person. So Taylorsville was a very, very, driving into it, it could have been very intimidating for a lot of people. I mean, leaving Gulfport, Mississippi, and being there to protect the First Amendment right of people who've lost their children to state-sponsored killers. And I think we need to start using the right terminology as well when we talking about the maneuvers that we pull. Because first of all, people want us to prove why we did. That's what I'm getting. People want to know. I was asked, okay, we understand the protest, but why the guns? Why you got to have the gun? These people, that's observing. Why do you have to have the gun? So you clearly don't understand the dynamics. You clearly don't understand that. So just the act in Taylorsville was preceded by what took place in Gulfport. So what took place in Gulfport was we had organized protest for Jaheim McMillan, and we were armed. And that presence of black men being armed is very alarming to white people. So what happened the next day, we go into Taylorsville, where people already know. They don't know that they know that it's gonna be more than a protest. It's actually gonna be black men there, namely Elmer Geronimo Pratt is gonna be there. We have organized structure with our guns. So in doing that, to watch how the state prepared for that, that's what I'm dealing with, and that's what I'm trying to get people to see. They maneuvered to come in with heavily armed MRAP vehicles, you know what I'm saying, which is basically an armed military vehicle. They were there. You got state highway patrolmen that's up in the numbers, maybe 30 or 40 state highway patrolmen, and you have all of Taylorsville law officials out there. And you got 12 people from Elmer Geronimo Pratt. And that's why I alluded to me being an ancestor worshiper, because at that time, I'm saying, okay, we up against a lot of odds here. And people really need to understand that. But we here to get something done. We here to make sure that voices are heard and that black pain is being talked about, so that we can bring some type of justice, in this matter. So that's what and in doing that, it agitated people. It agitated people that was on the side, white people that was on the side that was agitated by the presence of what I call black power, black organized power. And it agitated them to the point where, some white heckler could not, deal with it. And he blurted out, some obscenity, obscenity to Sister Valerie, concerning the young man that was killed. And he said, the hogs ate him. And Sister Valerie approached him and said, well, sound like you know something about it. And Sister Valerie is one of our strong soldiers that that engaged this heckler, a white heckler that was agitating the crowd. So that's where the confrontation began, because once he engaged us, we engaged him in return, and that's when it broke loose. And so the confrontation came. And what I want to point out to people is that, engaging that type of force with the force that we had no fear. There's no fear there. There's no fear at all. General Nick Bezel, my brother Howard Little, everybody that was there, we were already dedicated to that mission. We had already had our marching papers. We already understood that some of us may not come back home, because things like this can happen. And when black people are protesting, and when we go and we exercise the Second Amendment, then these white people, they're supposed to be paid to protect the protesters, they actually there to engage us. That's why they there. So that we there to protect the protesters from them.
Yeah.
From them. So it was 12 of us out there, 11 of us out there that basically held off the whole State Highway Patrol of Mississippi and Taylorsville. So that's basically what happened.
And that's something that people don't understand, but it's a historical pattern. it's a historical pattern that these people, they don't protect who they're supposed to be protecting. They protect the aggressors instead of the people that they need to be protected. And we got to understand that. And somebody said Brookhaven in the comments, and that was basically where we saw General Nick Belzer, Commander Nick Belzer I mean, it was so much respect gained that day down in Brookhaven when you all were fighting for DeMonterio Gibson and justice for him. And so the Elmer Geronimo Pratt is much bigger than just, we guns, self-defense is it, but also we fight for people that need justice. And I want y'all to talk about that some, because now, the Jaheim McMillan, the Rasheem Carters, the DeMonterio Gibsons, the Mallorys out in Colorado. Let's talk about some of that so people can really understand the scope of Elmer Geronimo Pratt.
Yeah, and real quick, I saw Brother Jahi put in the
Yeah, the
chat.
Ballad of the Bullet.
Ballad of the Bullet. Well, I'm glad he mentioned that, because a few years ago, I actually made a statement, and I said, well, this is 60 years later, and this is the modern version. And I said, well, instead of the Ballad of the Bullet, we'll call it the pen or the pistol. And so, we've been rocking with that, for a while. Just, a lot of the same concepts. If we can't get things done through, through legislation, what other options do we have? And if you try to infringe on us, using our First Amendment, right? The pen is the First Amendment. So being able to exercise our First Amendment right, whether it's speaking out against atrocities or trying to get legislation passed, if you try to infringe on that, if you try to get in the way of, impede our progress, then again, it goes back to what I said about, we talked about people defending themselves, defending nations. And if you try to impede on that, then we have a right to defend our Black nation against anybody who will try to cause harm to it. So, that's kind of, the evolution, I think, of where we're at. But, you draw that knowledge from the ancestors, you draw that knowledge from the elders. And you just, I always say, anything that we can learn from the ancestors or the elders, we have to take all the knowledge we can and just apply it to the day. So it will be the same. It just has to evolve. And, that's kind of, where we're at. But yeah, there's a lot of different initiatives that we, have been a part of or are a part of. I know you were talking about the Mallorys, just anybody, Marvin Guy, it's just so many that I can think of. But I always tell people I would be negligent if I didn't try to do something to help these people, when they're called. Like you look at, and Commander Patrick talked about it, you look at Freedom Makers Ranch, the Mallorys being harassed and their livestock are being killed. Like literally, when we got there, when that cow was posted that was killed, we actually were the ones who found that cow that was killed on the Mallory's ranch. And even to this day, people who live around the Mallorys are, trying to send messages and still discredit them, to us, because they keep talking, because they say that, oh, we know it's a bunch of you all. We know, you guys were here with guns patrolling the property. You're absolutely right, we were. And we'll continue to do it, just to make sure that they have some peace, and to work with them. So, again, I can't go into all the details about some of the things that we're doing with the Mallorys, but, it just, we have to get to the point where we protect each other. We have to get to the point where we defend each other. A lot of this bickering and, all this other stuff that goes on, as a collective, like it has to stop, because we'll never advance until we truly understand who the enemy really is, and we come together. And you'll see, Sister Crystal, as you read through Last Man Standing, and that's, I think, probably one of the most prolific things about that book is reading how General Geronimo knew very early on that there were forces in play greater than just the LAPD. I mean, even Johnny Cochran has said time and time again, he thought General Geronimo, he was like, man, this guy's tripping. But then but then things start to come out and they realize, that, COINTELPRO was a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, but he had always been sharp enough. Again, the Pratts are very intelligent people. So he knew early on something wasn't right with a lot of different things. And so, just that, I tell anybody, this book will give you the counter blueprint to COINTELPRO. It tells you exactly what happened. It tells you exactly, how to use COINTELPRO. And I tell people all the time, COINTELPRO ain't changed. They're running the same plays they ran 60 years ago. We know from personal experience. They're running the same plays. And if you read this book, The Last Man Standing, it is a blueprint to tell you how to identify COINTELPRO and how to neutralize it early on.
And that's a powerful statement because, like I said earlier, people are called conspiracy theorists who tell the facts, who say these things, just like he probably was considered one during his time. But all you have to do is look and keep your eyes open and look at the patterns. I just keep saying patterns, because they have one. And you stated it earlier, when diplomacy doesn't work, here they come, ready to, that's just a pattern and a fact.
Right.
So, yeah, and so I think that we do ourselves a disservice by not studying and reading about the elders. They gave us a blueprint. We want to keep recycling information. No, it's time to act on it. And that's one reason why, the Geronimo Pratt Gun Club is effective, because we don't just talk, we act, boots on the ground. And that's appreciated very much, Brother Patrick.
Yeah. Let me state this. Here in Mississippi today, I don't know where else it happened, but if you went to get your driver's license today in Mississippi at any MDOT or whatever, it was closed. Okay, guess why it was closed? It was the observation of Confederate Memorial Day. All the State Highway Patrol was closed today because of the observation of Confederate Memorial Day. The point I'm trying to make is we are literally behind enemy lines. So when our ancestors tell us that we at war, we forget about that. We don't. It's kind of like John Henry Clark said. We haven't responded to nothing. That's a very powerful statement. He said we ain't responded to nothing. He said we haven't responded to slavery. We haven't responded to Jim Crow. We haven't responded to none of these things that diametrically oppose specifically Black people. We have not responded. And so we live in a time, like, I love what Jahi's saying right there. And that's a young warrior, and we need 10,000 of him, to develop, that next generation. When we living in a climate of social order like white supremacy, we got to understand what that means for Black people. You know what I'm saying? So we got, with Black people being diametrically opposed at this point, we have no other choice but to organize ourselves behind the Second Amendment and develop civil spaces for ourselves. Y'all call them safe spaces. See, what is a safe space for Black people? Where should we galvanize ourselves and begin to develop a safe space? And be able to protect them parameters. And that's what I'm saying to the revolutionary people. All the revolutionary people that listen, we got to come out of the conceptualization and the theorizing of this. Elmer Geronimo Pratt, Bookman Dada, Gabriel Prosser, Nat Turner, they already then showed us what it is that we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be coming together and creating these safe spaces. And we're not going to be able to do it if we do not use organized force in the form of the Second Amendment behind something like Geronimo Pratt. We're not going to be able to develop it because it's not within the constructs and order of the social order of white supremacy. It's not. So we got to be able to defend ourselves when we're doing this. We behind enemy line.
Great point. And and that's that's the frustration that comes with when people see people like the young brothers in Tennessee, the Justice. We see them come out when it's, white life. Brother Patrick and I have conversations about this a couple times. Why now is this important? Why now are we bringing this? Why now are we willing to risk it all and go out and do all this protesting on the floor? Why now? Do we value Black life the same as we value Black life? So I just speak to that, Brother Patrick, because I know you have a sentiment about that, and Brother Nick, you as well.
Well, I'm gonna let Brother Nick do that. But what you simply saying about Justin, the two Justins in Tennessee on the Parliament floor, what bothers me, Commander Nick, is that we seen an extreme political expression to the point where they were actually banned from the floor. But why was that so pronunciated by our Black elected officials? And we had an event, Crystal, where me and you were honored at Abyssinia Church with Justin Pierce. And I thought, he was one of our most forward-thinking Black politicians. And, we go around the state looking for forward-thinking Black politicians and scorning the capitulated Black politicians, telling them that you need to get out the way for people like Justin Pierce. So I'll tell you this, it was kind of a downer for me, Commander Bezel, to see Justin Pearson, out there so adamantly, and people feel like, maybe that was cool, but it really, to me, based on what it was and based on what it is we do, we don't see that same expression when it's Black life. We don't see that same adamancy to the point that you're willing to go. You're a Black representative. You dare because Black people. And I'm not saying that it shouldn't be done, but we don't see that level of dedication and commitment. We don't see that with Jaheim McMillan. We don't see Black people on the state Senate floor, state House floor in Mississippi with megaphones when Black life is threatened. But then, we go here in Tennessee and it's the same South, and we got our best and brightest young Black so-called liberated politicians on the floor because white life has been lost, talking about gun control, and you got these crazy white people running up in buildings, killing basically white people. But we got our Black politicians with their strongest expression. I'm talking about their strongest expression to the point where they agitated white people. But it was about white life being lost. So that's what I'm saying, concerning that. We got to have our politicians reflecting, Black liberation and standing for the quality and value of Black humanity.
Yeah. I'm big on studying, and I'm big on historical data, just collecting things and understanding. Mm-hmm. So everybody's favorite president, I'm gonna talk about him for a second. A lot of people like to call him Uncle Joe, but I call him Jim Crow Joe.
Jim Crow, right?
Mm-hmm. So historically, let's look at what he's done since he's been president, or things that have happened since he's been president. So when him and the chameleon, I call her a chameleon because she pretends to be Black, but she's really a Asian in disguise. But let's look at this. When them Asian massage parlors got shot up in Atlanta and them Asians lost their life, that Asian vice president, she ran down to Atlanta, her condolences. Jim Crow was, right behind her. But let me show you what they do when tragedy happens in America. So to pay respect, they lowered the flags in America to half mast to pay respects to those Asians that lost their lives in that senseless, shooting, the massage parlor shootings. Now, you fast forward a few months, you go to Buffalo, New York, where our elders were massacred by white supremacists. Manifesto, he said he was looking for soft targets. Let me pause right there. He was looking for soft targets. He went to a grocery store in the middle of the day where our elders shot, knowing that nobody there was going to be able to protect them. He went in there with a rifle and body armor on. That other brother that was in there with that pistol, he wasn't ready for that. This guy hops out shooting people. What, he killed 10 people. Did you see, Joe Biden or the chameleon? They didn't care nothing about them people in Buffalo. Check this out. When they got killed, the flags didn't fly at half mast. They kept them up like it was a while before they even started talking about that from the White House. And you fast forward down here in Texas, Uvalde, you know, a Latino kid, you know, cat goes in there, kills a bunch of Latino kids. That was, you know, since Biden had taken over, that killing in Uvalde was the highest one that anybody cared about in the United States. More than Atlanta. They definitely didn't care about Buffalo, but everybody was focused on Uvalde. What did they do? They lowered those flags to half staff to pay respects. So for Atlanta, for the Asians, they lowered the flags. For the Mexicans and Latinos in Uvalde, they lowered the flags. The blacks in Buffalo, they didn't. Now, you look at what just happened in Tennessee. When that white person went in there and shot up the school, they lowered the flags for that as well. But so you have Asian life, you have Latino life, you have white life. They paid respects to all these different ethnic groups, but when it came to black people, Joe Biden said, man, you know, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. This is the person who didn't lower them flags for black people. Because the thing is, again, I studied history. Joe Biden has told you for almost 50 years exactly who he is.
That's right.
He has told you for 50 years. This guy is a dino, right? A Democrat in name only. This guy's truly, you know, a Dixiecrat, even though he's from the North. This is what he is. And he's shown you that. Him and Hillary Clinton, what did they call black people? Super predators.
That's right.
The 94 crime bill. And he said if he could, he'd make a new one. This is what this man has said. He didn't want his kids going to school in a concrete jungle with other black kids. This is what he said. He wanted to give people max sentences for smoking crack. Well, guess what? the chickens came home to roost, because guess who's smoking crack now? His son. So see, black people have to stop falling for the okie doke, talking about this Uncle Joe. This guy is man, this guy's a creep. He a real creep when it comes to young girls. The way he sniffs their hair and all this other stuff. This is who y'all wanted for president. Y'all got you got exactly what you were looking for people who voted for him. So, you know, again, that just shows you what we're dealing with. We have no allies in this fight. You know, and so to speak on what you were saying about the brother in Tennessee, man, this man put on a whole show with a casket and a preacher and all this other stuff trying to get down on the floor. But where was that energy at for Black lives, like you said? Where are these politicians at for Rasheem Carter? Where are these politicians at for Jaheim McMillan? Like, where are they at? They ain't nowhere to be found. They ain't nowhere to be found. We seen that video with young Jaheim McMillan. They done edited that video. They done doctored it up, waited 5 months to put it out.
Right.
And now they want you, they think we some fools and think we gonna believe it. But now that you got still images of the actual shooting to see that there was no gun there. But so where the black politicians at now to fight for Sister Katrina and to fight for our gone brother Jaheim? Where are they at now? Where they at walking around with a casket with his picture on it?
Right. Agree.
And what's so frustrating is a lot of people still don't know the story of Jaheim McMillan or Rasheem Carter, other brother and Brandon. We don't know because we follow the trend, we follow whatever the news tells us, and we got to start talking about it. And that's why it's so important to have gun clubs and have organized groups go down there and protect these families and work with the families and speak for the families so that our people can know what's going on, because so many of our people think things are better. They don't even know half of the story. They don't know what's going on because we don't want to listen to the people with the boots on the ground. Because one thing, though, is when you know better, you know you got to do better. And a lot of our people, like I said, want to keep their head in the sand. They know that there's a system of racism, white supremacy, but we just want to find a comfortable spot in it, thinking that, you know, well, I'm good, my children good. Not so, you know. we've been getting the emails that Sister Priscilla, her son is missing. You know, who would have thought? You never wake. You know, we all have children, and you don't know what's going to happen. We don't control what happens when they walk out the door. That's why we have to get organized. We have to arm ourselves. We got to be ready to stand up and fight for what it is that we know is for us. Brother Patrick, I saw you unmute, so I know you want to say something.
Yeah, because as we speak, I'm thinking about the teachings of the Bibles that we have around us. You know, I'm thinking about Baba Kamal Kareem, right there in Columbus, Mississippi. You know, the Counselor General of the Black Liberation Movement. This is what Baba Kamal said. He said, we have to recognize that the quality of Black life is at an all-time low. The quality of Black life is at an all-time low. That's what the general just elaborated on. That's what he's saying. You know, it's okay for Black life to be ignored. And see, when we get to the point where our representative people are not exercising the power that we're giving them to give quality to our life, you know, I got an issue with that. You know, and see, I used to be one that went too much into politics as I knew it, but it took Dr. Laverne Murphy to teach me. He said, man, what you doing and what y'all are doing in Mississippi may be the biggest political movement in Mississippi. You're not an elected official, Patrick. That's what he said. But you have been elected by the circumstances of Black people. The Black Liberation Movement is a political movement. It's a political movement, and we control the navigation of the Black Liberation Movement. That's why what we take into these town hall meetings, to these elected officials, and when we start challenging them, what we challenging them to do is stand up and represent the quality of Black life. That's what we're trying to do, because historically, Black life has been torn apart in this system. So what Baba Kamal is simply telling us is that right now we're at an all-time low. You got LGBTQ is politicized stronger than Black life. Look at Don Lemon. Don Lemon just got released from CNN. Don Lemon is pronounced what, gay, right?
Yeah,
I'm right about that, right?
yeah.
So what political stance you think he's gonna take? You know, who gonna come to Don Lemon's defense? It's not gonna be Black people. It's gonna be LGBT people. If from my assessment, because they're stronger politically, they more valued politically, so they'll come to his defense if he's gonna fight for that. And what I'm simply saying is that we have to politicize our Blackness. We have to, I mean, we got to do this with our own people. That's why we go the places that we go with the Black Liberation Movement. Now we refortified with the Elmer Geronimo Pratt Gun Club. I'm too ecstatic about that. Because now we bring some force behind that. Think about this scenario, and I'm going to leave it alone. White people can be wrong, and you can be right. That's the diplomacy right there. And white people can still kill you, because that's what has happened. We have not decided to arm ourselves and to shoot back. You know, like Akinyele suggested, we will shoot back. And we got to make sure that people understand that, even our people, you know, because a lot of times when we out there, our people are the ones who are skeptical.
Mm-hmm.
Why we got to have the guns? We'll show you why we got to have the gun. You really know why we got to have the gun. You really know, but you just fearful. So we got to make it commonplace. This is not some type of unorganized organization that we run with. This is a very structured and organized organization, and it's very needed, you know, in the causation. That's what we missing. We missing organized force. We got the people, we got the intelligence, you know, we smart enough, but we don't have the courage to organize ourselves and back our humanity up to the death. Now I'll leave with this. Baba Shabaka Afrika told me, he said, Brother Patrick, you have proven that you will die for your people. He said, now the next step is to prove that you are willing to kill for your people. And see, that's where we go numb at.
Mm-hmm.
That's why our circuits and shit get all fucked up. I mean, I'm gonna tell you like it is. My
Mm-hmm.
circuit ain't fucked up about killing, about truth. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just like the general said, we don't practice violence, but we most definitely practice self-defense. But I believe in violence. I believe in violence. So yeah, what we doing with Elmer Geronimo Pratt, I think, is the most important thing that black people can be doing. I take it all over the nation. I take it all over the world, and and we're gonna organize behind that and continue to build what we have and continue to educate black people on the aspect of Second Amendment organization among black people. That's what we're gonna continue to do until it become a social norm with our people.
Um.
Yeah,
Yeah. Go ahead, brother Nate.
I'll just piggyback off what Commander Patrick just said. Most definitely, and I think you don't have to look any further than Minister Malcolm. He was big on organizing self-defense units and gun clubs. And he said one time, a lot of people may remember when he said this quote. I mean, not personally, but have seen it. He said the price for freedom is death, right? That's the price of freedom. Now, when you break that statement down, does it necessarily mean that you have to die? No, not you. Somebody has to for you to be
Right.
free. It don't
Right.
mean it's got to be you, but somebody has to go for it to be freedom. And again, historically, if you just understand history for the last 2,000 years, that's the only way people have become free. They had to fight for it. People are going to die to truly be free right here in this own country. I mean, when did it kick off? The Boston Tea Party, right? It started there, and then it was a full-fledged war to be free. In their eyes, everybody's vision of freedom is different, but for those people, the so-called founding fathers, um, they did whatever they had to do, outnumbered, outgunned, and all, and they had no fear for their freedom. Being over in the Middle East, fighting over there, you want to talk about a group of people who had no fear. Um, those Arabs, they had no fear about dying, none whatsoever. They would die for what they believed in, and they would kill for what they believed in. So
Mm-hmm.
when you start looking at the only group on the planet that's so passive is our people. But what people look for are martyrs though in America, right? They look for one or two people or a group of people that they can hashtag once a year, but that's the extent of what they'll do. That's just the extent, of where our people will go. Chris Dorner out in California, Micah X in Dallas. You know, people will hashtag them and say American heroes, but as a whole, in the totality, are we all willing to make a sacrifice the next time a young child is killed in America? Are we all willing to descend on that city, tens of thousands of us, the same way they went to D.C. for their president? Are we willing to do the same thing as a collective body, as people put all our differences to the side, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 of us descend into a city and say, hey, if that state sanctioned killer isn't fired and arrested, we're going to set it off out here? Are we willing to make that sacrifice as a people? And I'll leave it at that.
Agree. Brother Vaughn said he ready. Yeah, we know. Uh, and I want to, cause I know we getting, we past hour, but I wanted, cause I didn't go to the first GoPort, but when the brothers came back, I mean, they were fired up. Just being in the atmosphere, uh, being around the power, being around the unity, being around all of that had the brothers here that I talked to fired up. And I think that's what we missing. We missing that camaraderie. We missing that unity, because when we do get together, just being in Rolling Fork with everybody, it felt great to be with people that had the same mindset on the same mission. And once people get involved, then you'll understand what it is and why it's so important. to me. I don't know about you all, but that's how I
Mm-hmm.
feel about just the whole building process from Ashe Academy on to the self-defense, getting involved, putting your boots on the ground, getting your hands dirty. That make all the difference in the world to me. And I know if most people get involved, because we do a lot of what Brother Patrick says, pontificating about what needs to be done, theorizing. But the practical, we're missing that somewhere. Somewhere we're missing it. And so, it's just an honor for me to be a part of such a great body of people, great group of people. And I'm trying to get these comments up here because I know there are some good ones. We are warriors, but white supremacy system has beaten us down and made us forget who we are. We need to remember who we are. It's that saying, Kofa, go back and fetch it.
Sister Crystal,
Uh-huh.
that comment right there. Now, how do we remember? See, because when Professor James Small came to the second Black Liberation Movement Building Power Summit back in 2018, he told me something very, very powerful, and I never forgot it. He said, Brother Patrick, we have to remember what we already know. Okay? He said, we have to remember what we already know. Now, one of the things that I know have to happen is we have to present the imagery of power. That helps us remember. See, when we went to Gulfport for the first time, I called Brother Malik Haynes. I called Brother L. I called Brother RV. I called Brother Mark. And I said, look, we're going to go down to Gulfport, Mississippi. Well, what we going to do? I said, well, we're going down there. We're going to meet General Nick Bezel, and we're going to go down there. We're going to protect the protesters. Well, what does that require? These were questions that was asked by these lieutenants. And I basically told them, well, we're going to have a call, but we're going to have an armed protest, basically. I was told by Malik Haynes, I wish he was on here. He said, Brother Pat, that stopped me in my tracks. He said, I had to deal with that for a moment. Okay? He said, but I came to a conclusion that was something that I wanted to do. So what I'm simply saying is that we had to pass a threshold. Even as revolutionaries, we're not revolutionaries until we're willing to go all the way. See, that's what Bookman Dada and them did in Haiti. They were willing to go all the way. And they had a moment where they had to decide, what are we going to do? That's why Bookman Dada told the brothers, he said, if you want to be free, he said, you got to put away your white God and accept who you really are. See, that's the first battle. So we had that moment. And then we had a call where Brother Nick Bezel told us what it is that we're about to do. And he gave us instructions and he said, look, you take your card and you put your information in your back pocket. He said, because when we go on these missions, we may not come back. That was a decision that warriors had to make. And in this book right here, we got it from our Baba, Mulamu Baruti, Message to the Warrior. The warrior is born to defend his people. So at the end of the day, we were going to do this. What happened on that mission was that we had a powerful, what I call divinely synchronized moment where we just had a few brothers. And I understand. That's why I say I'm an ancestor worship. I understand what Bookman Dada did because Nick Bezel did the same thing. He did the same thing when he pulled us together. Brothers he didn't even know at the time, through me, pulled these brothers together and we met in Gulfport and we've been bonded ever since. And that feeling of camaraderie amongst brothers, I know how that feels. That energy of Bookman Dada, we inherit that energy and we operated like that. So that's what we have to do. And that statement is very important to me because we have to remember what we already know. But when young black men see this, organized, think about that movie Malcolm X. That white man didn't even respond until Malcolm told him, they told him, look out that window. Look out that window. And he seen all them black men standing ready to do whatever they were told. That's power. And that's organized force. And when we get to the point, and we getting there, Anybody that's listening, we have to get to that point. I don't care how spiritual you are. I don't care how knowledgeable you are. I don't care how much information you got. These people can kill you with
Right.
all their information. Okay, with all that information, they can simply kill you because that's basically what did happen. Well, the natives, they were already here. Basically, what happened, white people just killed them. We have to be willing to defend ourselves. And so we have to present that imagery. And I get it every time we go somewhere, Commander. Every time we go somewhere and we present ourselves, Elmer Geronimo Pratt, this is what we do. People see that. And it's always a black mother. They say, hey, let me talk to you. So what it is that y'all do? I said, well, this is what we do. And I explained to her. And you know why she asking me that? Because she got a black son out there with a gun. And she don't know what he gonna do with it. And she much rather us train him and organize him in this army. So we got a real mission with Elmer Geronimo Pratt. We're not just around here toting guns, hollering black power. Some very intelligent organization is going on here, and people should understand that. And we have to present this image. We have to present this image. The brother was sweating me the other day about what we're gonna do about the street tribe. Okay, well, let's go address the street tribe then. We not oblivious of organizing the street tribe. That's our army. But we got to get organized. So, yeah, I'll be there with the street tribe, representing Elmer Geronimo Pratt. And we want to see, how many of these brothers are willing to organize, behind this banner of Sect 2A and organize force. So that's where we at right now. And, we just got to be able to continue to present the image to our people and make them understand.
And Brother Obafemi said, we appreciate the example you all are setting as it pertains to organizing and self-defense. And so I know that there are some people on here that may want more information or want to join or just, want to talk. And I did drop the link in the chat for the Elmer Geronimo Pratt Gun Club. And Brother Nick, can you tell them like what the process is to become a member and all that?
Absolutely. So, you'll go on the website and there's an application that you have to fill out. And once you fill out the application, you'll be contacted by somebody. We'll reach out. We'll have a conversation via Zoom to make sure that this is something that you definitely want to do. Make sure you're a good fit, we're a good fit. And then based on your location, you'll be plugged in with a local chapter and start your training and your outreach programs. It's a 90-day probationary period. So, within that first 90 days, if we don't think you're a good fit or you feel like maybe you've gotten in over your head, you could go ahead and leave, no harm, no foul. But, once you get involved, you understand what comes along with it. We believe in giving back to our community. We believe in training. We believe in, just anything we can do to empower our people. Very intelligent people within the organization. Again, we've got laws passed, written bills. We work on civic development. Me and Brother Patrick just talked the other day for 2 hours about, developing, property. So, it's a lot that goes into it. So, a lot of times people will see the glamour and the glitz is what I like to say. They'll see the pictures of marches or the guns or so on and so forth, but that's just a fraction of what we do. There's so much more to it. I think, Commander Patrick, and everybody in the South, Mississippi and Alabama, Florida, everybody is just what you all have been bringing to the table down in the South. It's just amazing, and just to see all the members down there working, you know, just doing outstanding things, going to city council meetings, right? Salute to the sisters and the brothers the other day down there in Brookhaven doing the work, trying to get Fat Boy up out of there. So I salute them, for all they do. I got so much love for all the members in our organization. And, I tell people all the time, nobody's above the logo, not even myself. their brand must be protected at all times. That logo, that name, it has to be protected at all times. And so we just have to always hold ourselves to a high standard, try to, remove ourselves from any conflict or confrontation with other Black people. The last thing we want to do is go back and forth with Black people. We should be trying to come together. So a lot of times we won't even engage in that type of foolishness. And if there is a situation, we will address it the proper way and just move on. But I appreciate every member. Like, we wouldn't be where we are without every single member in this organization. So I salute every last one of you all for everything that you've done.
Salute.
Yes,
Salute.
sir. Yes,
Sister
sir.
Mary said she's proud and honored to be a member of the EGBC under the leadership of Commander Patrick and Brother Nick. So yes, I know we all are. Nothing but love and respect for you all, and taking us in and under your wing as well. Salute, Brother Vaughn. I just know from just the time that I've been a part of it, the boots on the ground, Jackson Water Crisis, Natchez, Brookhaven, Colorado, Rolling Fork. Just made it back from Rolling Fork a couple weekends ago, right? So yeah, so y'all just go to the website. If you want more information, like Brother Nick said, you fill out the application, and then there's a vetting process as well, because we learned from our great ancestor, Elmer Geronimo Pratt. So I don't have anything. I do have things, but we're gonna have to have a part 2 and have you all come back and talk a little bit more. But I would like you all just to close us out. Both of you can close us out with last statements.
Well, I'll let the national commander have the last statement, but I will say this, and I've been wanting to say this the whole show. One of the greatest leaders of all time, in my opinion, is that man right there behind you at the clock, Sister Crystal. That's Brother Alfred Skip Robinson, that went on to become Aziz Muhammad. If you don't mind getting that, I'm talking about, this is one of the greatest leaders of all time. He was able to organize under the United League 70,000 members. Think about that. That man was able to organize in Mississippi, in the South, 70,000 members of the United League. Why we don't know about that? Mm-hmm. That's why we have to have our Share Academy. And I was looking for that quote, that statement right there, because that's where I wanted to close it out. So, Sister Crystal, to close my portion out, because the National Journal is going to close us all the way out. Yeah. I want you to read that, and I want people to hear that.
And I want to say this too, because in Baba Akinyele's book, he goes into detail about Brother Skip, and in the 70s. Y'all see, this is current history. In the 70s, Brother Skip Robinson basically dismantled the Klan in Marshall County.
That's so right.
If you need to read that, this is like in around the page 274, 275, where he goes into detail about that. But this quote says, "We still believe very deeply in what Dr. King meant when he said that love and understanding can overcome hate and killing. But we don't feel that he meant that we should be cowards. If the Klan moves into my neighborhood and shoots at my neighbors, shoots at my house, I'm not going to fall on my knees and say, 'Oh Lord, stop them.' God stops man through man. If the Klan shoots into my home, if I do anything, I'm going to say, 'Oh Lord, help me to aim straight.'"
That's right. That's right. I say that's my closing statement.
Okay.
Help me shoot straight.
No, yeah, no, that's powerful, brother.
Help me
Commander.
shoot straight.
I mean, that's what it is. I just want people to understand that we have to do better. We have to understand what we're up against. We have to understand that, and we have to even the playing field all the time. We can't. It's like Brother Patrick said. People ask, "Why are we out here with the guns?" Well, if we out here with the guns for a reason, if something didn't happen, we wouldn't be here. And again, as a people, we have to be proactive and not reactive. And I can promise you, if we were proactive, all the energy that we put into everything else, if we were to put it in each other, protect each other, defend each other, if our politicians would speak up for us, the black politicians, I'm not talking about the white politicians, but I'm specifically talking about these black politicians out here. If they start taking up for us, and if we start taking up for each other, then I promise you, these state sanctioned hits that are going against our people will stop, because the alternative is something that they don't want to see. They don't want to see it. So that's what I have to say to our people. That's my message to our people. Let's do better. Let's come together, and let's be proactive and not reactive. And let's put together a strong, unified front to prevent these state-sanctioned killings from taking place.
Okay.
Brother Nick, I know you want to close, but I got to tell this man. I got to tell this man this. I'm grateful for you, brother. I'm grateful for you because of your courage and your willingness to even create this organization, you know, and to draw the people around you that you have been able to draw around you to be effective in this cause. I had an experience that I seen exactly how to remedy a problem that we think is pervasive in our communities. And I saw clearly how this problem can be eradicated. And that man right there, Nick Belzum, helped me to understand this through action. Katrina Mateen is being intimidated by the same police department that killed her son. The same police department. Nobody had answers until Nick Belzum came and said, well, we're going to go and we're going to set parameters around our house, and we want to see if the police is going to have that type of action toward Miss Katrina Mateen tonight. We went and set parameters around Katrina's house. And I'm going to tell you what happened. The parameter, the coordinates that Brother Nick gave us put us right into a drug trafficking alley. That's what we were, Brother Nick Belzum, in a drug trafficking alley. Our brothers were trafficking drugs in that alley. Guess what happened? Defending the parameters of our community and defending the humanity of Katrina, we stopped the drug transaction. Black men with guns stopped brothers from selling drugs in the community. Just in that microcosm right there. That was a microcosm. So what I'm simply saying is that we stopped the outside agitation of the police. They didn't come through. If they did come through, they seen what was going down. And we also stopped the internal problem that we had at that particular time. We engaged those brothers. Those brothers left the track because they seen black men with guns and they didn't understand what was going on. And the drug trafficking that was coming through there stopped. It stopped because of our presence. What is that telling us? That's telling us that we have to stand up, be men, protect the parameters of our community. Show that we're willing to protect the parameters of our community, and we'll get little Mike and Bebe Nam down there on the corner. We'll get their ass right. And through the action of Elmer Geronimo Pratt, being proactive, saying we're not going to tolerate state-sanctioned people killing our children and then trying to intimidate us from protesting and saying anything about it. We went out there and we stopped there in that moment. And what I'm saying is that if we make that normal, if we normalize that, we'll begin to clean our communities up. And we did it firsthand. And I'm grateful and I'm thankful for that man, his vision and what he's doing. And I'm honored to be a part of Elmer Geronimo Pratt.
And I am as well. I mean, just being around you all is great. It's the energy is right. The work is on point. And so I'm honored as well. And I want to say, Asante Sana, thank you very much to both of you for coming on tonight, helping teach our people what it means to defend ourselves, why we have to defend ourselves, the history of defending ourselves. It was a beautiful bill, and looking forward to the next time. I appreciate everyone who came on and engaged us with your comments, your questions, all of that. And we're going to still be here, and we're going to still be boots on the ground. So until next time, Black love and Black power.